What's up, y'all? It's Cool Hand Steve, and I'm back for episode 6 of Cool Hand Steve's Wild World of Sports. All right, guys, let's hop right into it as we have some brand new national champions in college football, that being the Indiana University Hoosiers, as they win over the Miami Hurricanes in Miami's home stadium, 27-21, to win their first, I believe, national championship. If it's not their first, it's their first since like the 1800s or something. No lie. Now, sure, Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner, didn't really have his best numbers, and that's kind of the sort of thing that sometimes we can expect in national championship games where it's all on the line. You're not going to see the prettiest stat lines all the time. And his wasn't either. He threw for under 200 yards. He didn't throw for any touchdowns, and he ran for, I believe, -1 yard. But he did have a clutch touchdown late in the fourth quarter to run the ball, put Indiana up 10. I would say Indiana had control really of the whole game, even though Miami wasn't striking distance, and as you saw in the last possession, had a chance to win it, but that last throw by Carson Beck, he just winged it a little bit short. If he had put a lot more mustard behind the ball like he needed to, who knows, you might have the Hurricanes being the new national champions. But be that as it may, the pass was short. Indiana's defense, who's been playing lights out really all season and definitely all playoff, came up with a big interception, and there you have it. Indiana's the national champions. One thing I really would like to see is the odds on who were supposed to appear in the national championship game before the season started, because if you had told most people it would have been Indiana versus Miami, they probably would have laughed you right out of the building. But that just shows the unpredictability now of college football these days with this transfer portal, with this NIL, and things like that, on top of the recruiting and things like that. So it's a whole different ballgame in college football. Some for the better, some for the worse. A lot of it's being debated and discussed. I think it's more so for the better than for the worse, but it's not perfect for sure. But you look at Indiana football, this is absolutely unprecedented. There's nothing that I can compare this to. Coach Kurt Signetti, if he hasn't gotten a extension on his contract already, I want to say he has, but I'm not sure. If he hasn't, what Indiana football needs to do, what Indiana University needs to do, is hand that man a blank check. Apparently, you guys have the biggest alumni base in all the United States. Something I didn't know until the last couple of weeks, with their playoff run. But from what I hear, it's a great business school, so that's a great thing for Indiana. And like I said, they have the largest alumni base. You got guys like Mark Cuban who are billionaires. You probably got other billionaires within that base. So I'm pretty sure they can afford to write him a blank check, say, sir, whatever you want to put on that check, just put it, and your wish will become a reality. Because what we're seeing here is just absolutely incredible. There's nothing I can compare it to. It's literally like an NCAA football video game. That's literally the only thing I can compare it to when you go on dynasty mode and you pick the worst school and you try to see if you can turn them around as fast as they can into national champions. That's the only place I've seen it is virtual. In reality, this is the first time. Absolutely incredible what they're doing up there in Indiana. So yes, once again, shout out to the Hoosiers. Fernando Mendoza has already declared for the NFL draft. He's presumed to be the #1 overall pick. When you have teams like the Raiders and the Jets that need a quarterback, it's not going to last very long. He'll stay at the top of the draft. That being said, the college football season's over, and now we got to skip things over to the NFL because we have a couple of conference championship games that to be played tomorrow to decide who's going to go to Super Bowl 60. And we're going to start in the AFC with the AFC Championship game between the New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. These are the two top seeds in the AFC, had the same regular season record, but the Broncos had a tiebreaker, so the Broncos have the top seed. So this game will be in Denver, which is a very, very loud, very, very intimidating atmosphere with the altitude and the fans and everything like this. But they had a pretty tough blow last week, as even though they beat the Buffalo Bills 33-30, and Bo Nix played a great game. Towards the end of that game, as we all know, he had to kneel down. Somebody stepped on his foot. It was in an awkward position. He ends up breaking a bone in his foot, and he's out for the rest of the playoffs. So that means now that the weight of all of Colorado is now on the shoulders of one Jarrett Stidham. I mean, we're talking about a guy in Jarrett Stidham that has not played in a game since 2022, back when he was with the Raiders. And he's taken one snap this year, and that was a kneel down against the Cowboys, because as good as the Broncos have been this regular season, as good as their record has been, they've been in a lot of close games. And sometimes that's a casualty of playing all these close games is you don't really get a chance to play your backups. And now you're in a situation where you have to rely on your backup to pull you guys through to accomplish your ultimate goals. Win the AFC, go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. That's what they're up against. Now, it wouldn't be completely unprecedented because we've seen backup quarterbacks do this before. Nick Foles did it before, Kurt Warner did it before, and of course, as we all know, Tom Brady has done it before. Now, I'm not comparing this guy to none of those guys. Of course not, because those guys had a little bit more playing time than Jarrett Stidham did. They're just throwing him in the fire in the AFC Championship game. And then if they win this to go to the Super Bowl, it's just not a lot of time to be thrown in the fire like this. But you have to do what you have to do. So the Broncos are going to have to do a lot to take some pressure off of them offensively. They are a pretty good offense as it stands, even with Bo Nix. But the rushing offense is kind of middle of the road. And they're going against a good New England defense, a good young New England defense that's played very well in this playoffs, albeit against a compromised Chargers offense and not all that great Texans offense without their best receiver. Still, they're going to have to make some things shake because, yes, Jarrett Stidham is the X factor to this game for them, but they just can't completely rely on him. Just have them pull through, just lean on him to pull through 100% if they're going to win this game, as good as their defense is, and it is great. Now, there's some highlights of him going around. I think it was the last game he played in when he was with the Raiders. It was against the 49ers. So that means it was a good performance. He threw for like 250 yards. He played well. There's some highlights of him. I believe it's on Twitter. It might be on YouTube as well, where you can see that he does have some ability. He was a highly touted high school prospect coming out of high school in Texas, but he's had an up and down college career. And, he's bounced around a few teams already. He was actually with New England last year, and they wanted to re-sign him. But Denver got him to a deal this year. So we'll see how he performs. It's going to really be on him to see how this goes. As far as the Patriots go, they're pretty healthy on both sides of the ball. So they're coming in with a full deck against the Broncos there in that environment. Now, before I make my prediction, let me just say, none of these matchups would surprise me as it stands. Obviously, the Broncos, I think, have the best defense, maybe of any team remaining, maybe including the Seahawks. But offensively, they're a bit too compromised for my taste. You got a very, very talented and balanced Patriots team on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. You look at their numbers, where they rank in rushing defense, passing defense, rushing offense, passing offense. They're top 10 or near top 10 in all of that. And I think that's going to show its head on Sunday. I think they go into Denver and they pull out this game and they go on to Super Bowl 60. And now we're switching things over to the NFC, where we have a division rivalry yet again for the second week in a row for the Seattle Seahawks. As they're the top seeded team in the NFC, they will host the Los Angeles Rams for the third time this year, obviously being division rivals. They played twice in the regular season. This is the rubber match for the NFC Championship game. Now, some people are saying this is really the real Super Bowl matchup. I mean, no disrespect to the Broncos and the Patriots. Those are really good teams, especially the Patriots. I don't know if I go that far, but this is the marquee matchup probably of the season, especially when you reference what they did just last month. They're in Seattle, December 18th. The Seahawks won in overtime 38-37. And you may expect something similar to that. Both teams high-powered offenses, especially the Rams, are the number one scoring offense in the league. Middle of the road kind of defense, so they're a team that kind of has to rely more on their points to be able to win a game, even though in the first couple of games they've had some pretty good stances defensively, especially in the last game against Chicago, not so much against Carolina. And then their offenses come through when it's needed the most. And then you got a Seahawks team that just absolutely obliterated San Francisco. The 49ers had no shot from the opening kickoff. Hoosiers returned for the touchdown, and they just cruised from there. Sam Darnold didn't have to do that much. I think he's going to have to do more if they're going to pull out the NFC Championship win. They're up in Seattle. As far as things go on defense, the Rams do have a pretty good pass rush, obviously, with Jared Verse and those guys. So we'll see if they can put some pressure on Sam Darnold. But they got a guy like Kenneth Walker, who had a great game last week against the Niners, having 3 touchdowns. So that's a dual threat aspect that they're going to have to stop the pass as well as the run for the Rams. And then, of course, the Seahawks, they got to do the same thing. Kyron Williams had a really good game last week against Chicago. The Rams got one of their key offensive linemen back, and that really made a difference against the Bears. And then obviously you got to me, the incumbent MVP in Matthew Stafford. Going up to the cold. They didn't have a very good record in cold weather. Didn't matter last week against the Bears. Now they're going to Seattle, play Seahawks. They're looking for revenge. Obviously, they wanted to win that last game against the Rams in December, because that pretty much decided the number 1 seed. And this is pretty much why we're playing this game in Seattle instead of Los Angeles. So we'll see how that one goes. It's high powered on both sides. So I can see why people say that this is the real Super Bowl. So in the public, the Seahawks are the favorite. I can see why this is going to be a back and forth type of thing for me. I've gone back and forth on this pick pretty much all week. I think Seattle has a little bit more better overall talent. I think the Rams have a bit more experience, especially with Matt Stafford and Devontae Adams and those type of guys. I think if you had to put the two quarterbacks in a vacuum and you had to tell them to go and make a play to win the game, I trust Matt Stafford more than I trust Sam Darnold. That's just the facts. And I think that this type of game is going to come down to something like that. If it's more of a blowout, I see Seattle blowing out the Rams more than I see the Rams blowing out Seattle. But if it's close, and like I said, you have to have two quarterbacks to make a play, I trust Matt Stafford more. And plus, obviously, the game that Seattle won was a 1-point win, and then the Rams beat them earlier that year in LA. So who's really the better team? I'm going to roll with the Rams. I'm going to roll with the Rams to win. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a great game. But I got LA going to Super Bowl 60. All right, so now we're going to shift gears and go to the NBA, where last week, VJ Edgecombe, the sensational rookie guard of the Philadelphia 76ers, he was asked a question about All-Star Weekend in the dunk contest, saying, hey, basically, will you enter the dunk contest? And you look at his game, you look at his highlights, he's definitely a high flyer in this league. He basically came out and he said, nah, I'm good. So this is a growing trend that we're seeing now with these players not wanting to enter the dunk contest. This is something that's been talked about for years upon years now at this point. But I got something that's a little bit of food for thought. Maybe I'm playing a little bit devil's advocate here, but there's something I want you guys to consider. Now, trust me, I understand your frustration. I understand that we are tracing this back to the days when LeBron James was in his prime, or he was in his youth, and he had chances to enter the dunk contest and he didn't enter it. And it seemed to start this trend where you got stars not wanting to enter the dunk contest. You got role players now not even wanting to enter the dunk contest. Rookie, second-year players that can make a name for themselves, that could, get endorsements off of winning a dunk contest like they used to back in the day, to really build your brand and your profile, saying, no, I'm good. I don't want to enter the dunk contest. But why is all this the case? I mean, listen, if you think about it, at this point, what other dunks can you do creatively? Honestly, we've seen guys jump over people, jump over multiple people, do different kinds of dunks while jumping over people, jumping over cars, jumping over top airplanes, jumping over all sorts of things, doing all these creative dunks, reverse windmill, 360s. We've seen almost every dunk there is to see. Behind the back dunks, through the legs, all sorts of different ways. What else is there to do? And I think that's something these players are taking into consideration. Now, let's also consider this. You have these owners, these GMs, this management for all of these NBA teams saying, hey, listen, we're paying all these players more money than they've ever been paid before. We're already acquiescing to them when it comes to load management and when it comes to brand deals, and when it comes to this, and when it comes to that, and this and that. But hey, look, I want to win a championship, and there are some things that I want accomplished, and as a result, there are things that I demand as well. And one of the things that I'll demand is I don't want my players getting hurt in a meaningless game, getting hurt in some meaningless contest, even though I wouldn't say it's meaningless, but they would say, compared to the grand scheme of things, this is meaningless to us. And so we have goals we want to accomplish as a team. I want all my guys healthy for a playoff run. So they could be stepping in and saying such things as well. So that might be another thing that throws water onto that fire that is a slam dunk contest. Now, one thing I've seen a lot of people propose is that, how about we just go and grab these street ballers, these guys that are, I guess you could say, professional dunkers in a way. Why don't we hire these guys to come in and just do the slam dunk contest and have them do it that way. And while, yes, that will be entertaining to watch because these guys can get down. I've seen, the YouTube highlights and this and that, and I'm sure you have too. It's supposed to be NBA All-Star Weekend. Yes, it's a celebration of basketball, but it's mostly a celebration of NBA basketball. We're not bringing in people from other leagues or from off the street to do such things. So if you do that, how's an NBA All-Star Weekend? How would you involve NBA players or legends in that? Would you have them sponsor the guys? Maybe. I don't know if that aspect of it is going to be interesting enough to draw in people. Maybe the aspect of just seeing them dunk. But on the other hand, we already have that because TNT and Bleacher Report, they had a show in the offseason just a couple months ago, and you probably seen it on YouTube. I believe it's called Dunk Man. I think it's sponsored by Shaq. He was a judge. Grant Hill was a judge. He had a few guest judges. Chris Webber, Nate Robinson, he did it. And those guys, Jalen Rose. So we kind of already have that. So I just don't see how much good that would do. So yeah, it's just a mess. And back to my original point about how this can build your brand and things like that. That's still a thing. So I don't think this is a meaningless contest. You can have guys like a Ja or Anthony Edwards or a Zion or VJ Edgecombe that can really make a name for himself doing a contest like this. But again, back to one of my other points is that what other dunks can they do at this point? What other dunks can they do? They probably would have to do some sort of dunk that would make their owners and the GMs probably go into some sort of cardiac arrest or some panic attack, because at this point, that's probably what you're gonna have to do to pretty much get a legit 50 nowadays, if doing something that we've never seen. Frankly, I don't know if most of these guys are capable of doing that, and if they are, it's such a risky move that I don't think franchises want to take. So it's a huge, huge dilemma. It's going to be a huge problem, and it's not going away anytime soon. Now, speaking of All-Star Weekend, the All-Star stars were named last week, as we have, I'm not sure why they're still doing East and West when they haven't done an East versus West All-Star game since 2017. They've been doing this captain stuff. Now they're doing the USA versus the world, but whatever. Anyway, the All-Star stars have been announced last week. So in the East, we have Tyrese Maxey of the Sixers, Cade Cunningham of the Pistons, along with Jaylen Brown of the Celtics, Jalen Brunson of the Knicks, and Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks for now. And then out West, we have Stephen Curry of the Warriors, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder. We have Victor Wembanyama of the Spurs, Nikola Jokic of the Nuggets, and Luka Doncic of the LA Lakers. So, literally, if we break this down to US versus world, it's pretty much going to look like 4 point guards and a small forward versus 2 big guards, a power forward, and 2 centers. Probably not the most ideal All-Star game in terms of matchups and this and that and the third, but that's what we got with the starters. We'll find out with the reserves, I believe, this week. That's usually how they do it. They do the starters one week, the reserves the next. It's supposed to be US versus world, so pretty much wherever's going to be chosen, that's what's going to be chosen. So we'll have to see how that plays, if we're going to have enough players to fill the world side or the US side. We may have players like, we've already heard Donovan Mitchell say he would like to play for the world team if he's invited to the game, which he might be, because he has folks that's from Panama, so he may just end up playing for the world team, because he'll probably have enough for the US team either way. But we'll see how the voting goes for the reserves this week. We'll see who gets named to the team. And yeah, we'll see if this new format really fixes things like the NBA seems to think that it will. I personally don't think that it will. There's probably going to be some rules that are going to have to be, if you really want to fix it, have some rules that are invented, maybe extra incentives as far as money is concerned. They're doing this whole, they do the point total where you have to reach a certain point total per quarter instead of doing just the time quarters as normal for a normal game. That can kind of help some things, I guess, a little bit, but maybe up the money incentive, do something to help this game. But I don't think US versus world really is going to affect much. I think if anything, we're probably going to get some snubs, because you're probably going to have some guys invited maybe on the world side that otherwise wouldn't be all-stars. And so you may have some guys on the US team get snubbed. Or you may have the other scenario like I stated earlier. So I don't know if this is really going to fix things. To me, they should just go back to East versus West. Just if you want to do the point total per quarter thing, that's fine. I'm cool with that, but up the incentive or something to help make the All-Star game a bit more competitive and something that fans really want to see, because if it keeps going the way they're going, the players might get booed off the floor, and it might be an ugly scene for the NBA and the relationship between its players and its fans, and then the owners and all this other stuff. And finally, real quick, we're going to get to the injury on Giannis to talk about that. He said he heard something pop in yesterday's game versus the Denver Nuggets in his calf. He's had this kind of problem before. He'll have an MRI, but he's expected to be out about 4 to 6 weeks, so he won't be playing in that All-Star game next month in LA. But there's already been a lot of trade rumors surrounding Giannis. He seems to be a lot more downtrodden, even before this injury, in his interviews about the direction of the team and the way things are going. The Bucks they're out of playoff contention as of right now, and they definitely seems like they will be without clearly their best player for about a month to month and a half. So we'll see how things look when they come back into it. There's already been a lot of trade talk heating up around Giannis. I don't know how that's going to go now with the injury. I just don't know if teams are going to want to take the risk at this point. Had he not gotten injured, I was almost pretty sure he's going to get traded. He may still anyway, because he's just that good, and he is expected to come back this year. But as I said, he's had that injury in history in the past where he's missed, playoff games and this and that and the third. So we'll have to see how the situation plays out with Giannis. But if things keep looking the way they're looking as they are right now, I don't think he's long for that Milwaukee Bucks uniform. I just don't think we're going to see him in that a whole lot longer. Maybe to the end of the season if he comes back. Like I said, with the injury, he probably won't get traded. But after that, I doubt it. But yeah, y'all, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know in the comments below your predictions for the AFC and the NFC Championship games, as well as your thoughts on these other topics. Indiana having this incredible rise, obviously the All-Star controversy and the controversy surrounding Giannis as well. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below. Thank you so much for being here. As always, y'all can be anywhere else in the world, you're with me, and I appreciate that. So until next time, Glenn and Steve out.